Good morning to you, and welcome back to today's JRPG Weekly Update. Guys, there have been quite a few games that were announced, and I'm going to cover a fudge ton of them. But before we do talk a little bit about that, we have some new games that were announced that I'd like to talk about, starting with Visions of Mana, which got a new announcement trailer, a new launch, well, not launch, but a launch date trailer, release date trailer, that's what they call them. This revealed trailer revealed some small hints about what story might be told throughout the title, which gave me some Final Fantasy X vibes or Tales of Symphonia vibes. It's looking like it's gonna, maybe tell a familiar story, but I'm guessing they're gonna do some different things with this one, and I can't wait to see exactly what that entails. The trailer also gave us a release date of August 29th, 2024, which is just in time for me to use it to celebrate my birthday, so I am gonna be keeping my eyes open for that one. Now there's this other one that a lot of people have been really excited about. It's been making some waves. It's from Sandfall Interactive. It is a French-based studio that also has an incredible little showcase here. They showed off a game called Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And this is a Western-made AAA RPG that appears to have kind of a dark fantasy setting. Combat in this game is turn-based, which is especially unique for a Western-style RPG. Usually they're all action RPGs, it seems. And this appears to feature real-time button presses during the combat, so it's been drawing some comparisons from people to games like Legend of Dragoon or maybe Shadow Hearts. They're calling this a reactive turn-based RPG, and they're calling it an evolution of the JRPG, which is a mighty bold claim, but it's one that I'm interested to get my hands on and try out for myself. The game seems to center around a world where the idea of people are being vanished from existence by some otherworldly being based on their age, and it draws like a number in the sky, and then poof, they just don't feel so good, Mr. Stark. And then, yeah, that's kind of it as far as we know. It's been kind of minimalist. It's about the rest of the story that's been telling so far, but this has raised my eyebrow. This is this is looking pretty cool. This game is expected to launch sometime in 2025. Now, while the game debuted its trailer at the Xbox showcase, the game is also expected to come to Steam and the Epic Game Store for PC, and also the PlayStation 5. So, if you don't have an Xbox, don't worry about it. Now, moving on to some SuperDerek news that's also just kind of a roundup. Really, I just wanted to take this as a moment to say, one, I'm working on a couple of things that have taken a while to move forward, one of which I hope I can release next week, but it's kind of out of my hands at this point, but I'll be sure to let you know when it comes out, so subscribe so you don't miss it. But also, last week on HitPoint, Baku and I did something completely different. We had our first ever HitPoint game show recap, where we curated all of the coolest RPGs and all of the adjacent genres as well from 13 different showcases. If you didn't know that there were 13 showcases leading up to last week, well, you're not alone. I didn't know either, and you might have missed a bunch of games, because I certainly did. And well, thank you, Baku, for curating that list. It was a really stellar way to kind of get caught up on all of those games. We covered 57 games. It was a massive amount of games and cool trailers to get excited about, so go check out the video if you have some time. There are timestamps so you can skip around, but I did pull out some of my favorites that I wanted to just shine another little spotlight on it, starting with Castaway, which was a Zelda-inspired indie RPG action-adventure game that looks like it's in the style of a Game Boy Color title. And then there was Infinity Knight Cross, but Cross is spelled with an X, and it's a 3-player local co-op action RPG. And then we got Kingdoms of the Dump, which is a beautiful RPG with garbage graphics. And then there's Escape from Ever After, which is a Paper Mario style RPG that looks to my eye a lot like it's been inspired by the art style of Steven Universe. And then there's Cairn, a Scottish made Earthbound style looking game that I don't know a whole heck of a lot about, but it looks beautifully done. Then there's Shrine's Legacy, which I've talked about in a previous video, but this one, it's still in development and it has come along so far. It looks so nice. Then there's Sacrifier, which is kind of an experimental style RPG. They've got a playable demo that they're looking for feedback on. Go play it so that you can give them some feedback so they can make changes based on player input. Then they got Quartet, which is a follow-up to the brilliant game Shadows of Adam by Something Classic. My Familiar, which is the Saturday morning cartoon looking RPG that has brilliant design and animation. Abyss is the X pronounced on this one Abyss Zero or Abyss X Zero? It's a PlayStation 2 era kind of looking game, an action RPG with a lot of flair. And then there's Under the Island, which is a gorgeous action adventure featuring the same composer as Terranigma coming out of the woodwork to work on this game out of nowhere. And then there's Nights in Tight Spaces, which is this close quarters kind of tactical style RPG that looks really awesome. There's this Rakukaga, which is this jet set radio inspired skating graffiti platformer. Wander Stars, which is this old school anime style RPG made by an indie studio where you make new special moves by combining names of different things. There's Last Moon, a hand-drawn 2-player co-op looking action RPG that looks incredible. And Unbeatable, which is like a cyberpunk themed music and rhythm based RPG. Like, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many, and I literally could not list them all here, but go over to that video and watch the video because we listed them all there. They are looking real good. We're eating good in the near future. So, moving along to some rumor mill news. Last week, I reported a rumor mill news that was spread by a notorious leaker, Midori. Now, I feel like I should mention this because, as it turns out, their identity was later leaked this week, and now they're getting a lot of backlash for stuff that they had previously kept secret. I feel like there's some sort of moral to this story, but I can't quite put my finger on it. But around that same time, there was a massive other leak that was coming out of the Epic Games store, I think, or just Epic Games in general, that's quite reminiscent of like that NVIDIA leak from years ago. The contents of this leak include project titles as well as the last dates that those projects were updated, and these leaks came from tools that essentially spat out some data accidentally to people who shouldn't really have had it, but at any rate it was collected and now we have it, and many of these projects have really interesting code names that's been all over the internet. You might have already heard about it, but one of the things that I really wanted to draw some attention to was this one that tangentially ties into what we talked about last week with Final Fantasy IX Remake, which apparently has its own project name in there, and what's more, it has been updated relatively recently. So while all the details about the rumored projects I covered about last week, I didn't go into too many details, well, this is one of those reasons, but in the comments I did mention how some of the things I had heard sounded promising. Well, I can't take those for granted anymore, because the veracity of some claims have been called into question, but what does remain is the fact that it looks like it's coming. I don't know when, we don't know where, we don't know what it's like, if it's AAA, AA, or somewhere in between, but, you know, as always, hype responsibly. Now, it's time for us to talk about a little bit of industry news. It's a little bit of both, right? Capcom, they released the results of their Super Election Survey. 254,000 participants weighed in on their favorite games from Capcom and made their voices heard from across the globe. The results of this survey bode very well for Devil May Cry and Dino Crisis and Monster Hunters and Okami, all often appearing at the top of many of these lists. I was particularly excited about this survey as it often had response options for like the Breath of Fire series and other really good games, but these results are not quite what I had hoped for. Breath of Fire 3 sometimes showed up in the 7 through 10 rankings for certain questions, but securing the number 3 spot in the top 10 for folks in their 30s, and not really ranking anywhere else for people in their 20s or 30s. Notably though, Breath of Fire also appears to poll higher among Japanese audiences and slightly better among men. The game did rank highly against their other retro IPs on the question of games that should be remade with the latest technology, in close running with Onimusha, but trailing far behind the other game category, the category for just something that wasn't on the list. You can find the full results of the survey that I'll have linked in a pinned comment down below, next to the link shop.superderekRPGs, where you can get a shirt to remind you to hype responsibly the next time I start talking about rumor mill news or potentially reviving the Breath of Fire series. But anyways, what's your takeaway from that Breath of Fire survey? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you there and I'll be reading along. So until next time, guys, have a great week, everybody.